Hello, welcome to the Jack and Jack show. Jack Stroudly alongside me, Joe Sansom away with family, Jack stepping in and stepping up. 3-0 Fulham on Boxing Day. How are you?
Doing very well, mate. Doing very well. I'm sure we'll get into the game, but a lovely Christmas filled with lots of booze, lots of cheese, lots of food. Certainly a hangover that needed to be dealt with on Boxing Day. And it certainly was after the performance, which I'm sure we'll go into.
Yeah, let's just jump straight into it. Obviously, the first game back from the restart, from the World Cup, the restart. Fulham winning by 3-0 against 9 men Crystal Palace. And, I think we were speaking beforehand and we agreed that Fulham were largely in control of the game before Palace went down to 10 men. And obviously we took the lead just before that as well. So what were your thoughts on the opening 20, 25 minutes before we scored?
I was very, very impressed. I thought it was a professional performance really from minute one. I was a little bit concerned, how would we kick things off? It's been it's obviously a weird season. I kind of think one or two teams are going to slowly drop down the table, maybe not pick up where they left off. I was worried Fulham would be one of those teams, and while they still could be, it's a very, very encouraging start. And I think, obviously, I said we're going to go into it, but I think even if it remained 11 versus 11, I think we probably would have still won that game. Overall, very positive.
It was such an off day from Crystal Palace. I think I've been really impressed with them the last season and a half under Vieira, and I've never really seen a performance like that from Palace, especially the likes of Wilfried Zaha was just so quiet, so quiet. Ayew had that one chance where he hit the crossbar. Apart from that, they didn't have a shot on target. And obviously, going down to 10 men doesn't help. But it was just a bit of a bizarre game, really. But one that Fulham took full advantage of, and we took advantage of the press. We forced Palace into errors, which led to the first goal. What did you think of Joachim Andersen's performance? Obviously, former Fulham player, and he had a bit of a shocker, didn't he?
Yeah, you'd have thought he was out of Fulham shirt. To be honest with you, I was looking forward to seeing him. First time properly. Obviously, first time I think he probably played Fulham since then. And he just wasn't at it at all. I've been really impressed with him since he's been at Crystal Palace, and as you say, Crystal Palace as a whole over the last year and a half, and they just didn't look up to it today. And I don't know what it was, and maybe it's because he didn't have Mark Gray next to him, and it was James Tompkins. Maybe it's because obviously as the game went on, everyone was knackered, and Fulham just kept going and going and going. But yeah, he had a really poor game, as did everyone really in a Crystal Palace shirt. I was really not looking forward, but I thought the battle between Cheick Doucouré and Paulinho would have been really, really fascinating to watch. We didn't get to see that, and I'm hardly going to moan about it because Fulham absolutely controlled from minute one. But yeah, a really bad day at the office for Crystal Palace.
And you're right in saying that it was so important that Fulham got off to the best possible start with the resumption of the Premier League, given the last two games. And the manner in which we lost those two games, both last-minute goals, I would say we played fairly well in both games, despite, the City, they said we lacked ambition going forward, but, you can't really expose yourself too much against Manchester City. I thought that what happened with the red cards was just one of those things where what goes around comes around, really, in football, and I thought that we deserved a bit of luck on Boxing Day.
Yeah, football is a little bit of a roundabout. I believe you get your luck over the course of a season, even with VAR. And I'm sure there'll be times this season where things won't go our way and we'll be incredibly frustrated with that. Obviously, you could argue, I think all three decisions were spot on, but you could argue we've been fortunate with decisions with 2 red cards and the dubious second goal where some people thought it was handball. I don't think it was handball at all. And I think the only one of those 3 decisions that is in potential contention is that James Tompkins' second yellow card. Like I said, I'm sure we'll go into it.
Well, let's talk about that now then. What did you think of that red card? Because the first challenge, let's start with Tyrick Mitchell's red card. That was a horror tackle. One that, did he slip? Was he out of control? I think I saw someone on Twitter say if Tete wasn't wearing shin pads, he would have broken his leg. It's possible. It was a shocking challenge, wasn't it?
Yeah, really, really bad challenge. A straight red card. Unfortunately, I wasn't at Sellers Park. I don't know what your view of it was from where you were, but they didn't really show it on Prime. You couldn't really see it. And then all of a sudden, the referees pulled out a red card, and I was like, "Oh God, who's this for?" And they kind of had to Kenny Tete, and I was thinking, "Crap, are we down to 10 men?" But it wasn't. It was Tariq Mitchell, and it's a stonewall red card. I don't think you can really have any arguments. I know a couple of Palace fans who I spoke to after the game, and I think they might have just been a little bit bitter because they were saying, he slipped, and it's not this, that, and the other. So if that's the other way around, you're screaming for Kenny Tete to be sent off, and it's no doubt in my mind it's a red card.
But it's Mitchell who's got his leg the highest. There was a moment in the ground where the red card came out very, very quickly. There was no doubt in the referee's mind. But there was just a second where we were looking around going, wait, is that for Tete or was that for Mitchell? And then, subsequently we saw Mitchell walk off and the Cheerios began. But the Tompkins one, the first yellow is a yellow card. Mitrovic has him on toast. He pulls him back, yellow card. The second one, we talked about it yesterday on the podcast. It was a bit weird. It was sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Was it intentional? I'm not sure. Did Mitrovic make the most of it? Probably. But his elbow's up. Your elbow can't be up. And, the referee had a good view of it. So he was punished and he got sent off for it.
Yeah, I think a player of Tompkins' experience should be aware of the situation. Obviously, he's done. He's already been booked. You can't have your elbow and your arm out that way and not expect a player to make the most of it in the modern day. And we all absolutely love Mitrovic, but he's a nightmare to play against, and he will draw fouls and he will make the most out of certain situations for Fulham. And this is just another one of those, which I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know what Tompkins is thinking. I think it's harsh, but he should know better.
I believe that Tompkins' first Premier League game for Palace since last Boxing Day, I heard a stat. Obviously he's had a lack of game time. And actually, talking about Joachim Andersen earlier, when he was obviously at the World Cup with Denmark, I don't know. I'd have to check. I don't know whether he had any friendly football up until that game against Fulham, and he looked really, really rusty. So it was just a very, very bad day at the office for Palace. But look, let's celebrate the fact that Fulham are now on 22 points. And what's good is now, today, the day of recording is, I don't know what day it is, like I said in the last episode. What day is it today? Thursday?
It's the
Wednesday?
I thought you were going to say the number. No, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday the 28th.
It's Wednesday. The 28th. Okay, so it's Wednesday the 28th. And last night, Forest lost 3-0 to Manchester United. Bournemouth lost 2-0 to Chelsea. And Fulham currently are 9 points above the relegation zone on 22 points. Very good, very reassuring given, 6 points above the relegation zone, albeit we had a great season so far. It was still making us quite anxious. And obviously compiled with that result last night for Forest, how at ease are you now with the table?
I think this has probably been the first time this season where I can kind of put my feet up and relax a little bit. I think we just look really, really strong. I think obviously there's still a long, long way to go. But I remember speaking to you after the game, and we now only need we're on 22. You need 6 wins left in the season to reach that magic 40, which obviously you dream of getting to every season. And that's assuming that we lose the rest of those games, which I don't think we will. And I think we're in a really, really strong position. Again, I'm sure we'll go on to Southampton. We've got a game on the weekend against Southampton, which is arguably quite a favourable one for us, and probably the first time this season where, you go into the game expecting to win. And I can't remember the last time we had a Premier League game where, you're going into it the clear favourites and the team that should win the game.
I think the last time that happened was surely the game against Sheffield United, where we won 1-0. And we did win. Obviously, Lookman scored. But I think Sheffield United were bottom of the table. They were on really a low tally of points. And we only just won that game. They had a late VAR checker for a penalty, I seem to remember. But yeah, you're right. Southampton is a game where I think they're in trouble. Given their defeat to Brighton, they played pretty poorly. They went 1-0 down to Lincoln in the Carabao Cup, albeit they turned it around. But Nathan Jones hasn't really got his teeth stuck into this squad yet, even though he's at the time of the World Cup. And if they do go and beat us on New Year's Day, that's a huge win for them. But at the moment, if someone could name a favourable Premier League fixture to have next, I would probably put Southampton at the top of the list, given the form we're on now, given the performance. What I'm going to do now is going to do something quite interesting, something I don't usually do. And if it looks a bit messy, I do apologise. This is the table at this stage last season in the Premier League. Obviously, we weren't in it. Let's have a look. Okay, so you can still see us. I'm just going to, there we go. So just have a look at that. We're currently sat on 22 points, and the team in 22 points this season is Leicester, Aston Villa. They obviously comfortably stayed up. You look at Brentford, who are on 20 as well after 17 games. They comfortably stayed up as well. Does that give us Fulham fans some sort of comfort that teams on this tally at this stage last season comfortably stayed up, and therefore we could look to be within that bracket?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think obviously there's a slight pinch of salt needed to be taken. Obviously we've not played as many games, so the fact that we're even on 20 points at this stage is obviously a big achievement. I think that we really should take this as confidence. We're playing really, really well. I think this is a very competitive Premier League this season, probably the most competitive it's been in quite a while. I know people, you're making claims for like Southampton, Forest, even Bournemouth, but there are so many teams in and around there at the moment that, could go down. You look at last season there, 10 points, 11 points, 13 points. It's really, it was a real poor bottom four, whereas this time I think everyone's got a slight chance of staying up. And, we do need to be wary, but I think we can be confident that we will stay up.
Obviously, look at Newcastle down in 19th. Look at them now in second in the Premier League, albeit Manchester City played tonight against Leeds. But the teams that are down there, so obviously Norwich were relegated with Burnley and Watford, Leeds, Everton, and I think Southampton sort of were in the relegation mire, especially the last day. It was, Leeds and Everton who just about stayed up. So it's interesting to sort of hark back to that and reference it. But I just wanted to do it just to sort of give the Fulham fans a little bit of confidence. I think as going into the World Cup, I was still like, I reckon we could still go down. But after the game against Palace, that has now I've definitely got more confidence that we can stay up. We're now 11-1 to go down, which is quite a high price. Obviously, we're at 5.5 before the Palace game. So that just proves that the market has shifted given our win against Crystal Palace. So let's talk Southampton. Really poor the other day on Boxing Day against a very, very good Brighton team. What happens next? What do you think they'll do when they come to the Cottage?
Well, it's actually interesting. I've started to look at writing the preview for the Southampton game for the Fulhamish website. And I thought I'd take a look at just Southampton just in general, and in terms of, yes, they are bottom of the league, but is there any kind of stats that really stand out in terms of maybe they shouldn't be there? People don't really turn to look at data. I'm a bit of a sucker for XG and all of that sort of stuff, so I like to have a look at all that sort of stuff. And you look at it, they're where they should be in terms of XG. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. They should be in about 14th, 15th place. But it's a mixture of two different things. Up the other end of up the top end of the pitch, they're creating a lot of chances, but they've just not got that focal point to score the goals. I think their top scorer of the season is Che Adams, who has scored 4 goals or something like that. James Ward-Prowse bags a few, and they haven't really got a focal point. Where like last season when they had Armando Broja, they haven't really got anything going forward to suggest that they're going to score the chances they get. And then at the other end of the pitch, defensively, they're conceding a lot more than they probably should be. And that is down to the fact that the keeper, I think it's Bazunu, he's the worst performing keeper in the league by quite a distance. He lets in a lot of shots that he probably shouldn't, which is something that Fulham can use to their favour. We're very good at creating a lot of chances. We saw against Crystal Palace, the amount of times that we put a ball into the box, Mitrovic got his head got on the end of it, and if it wasn't for Guaita, he could have had another 2 or 3. And I think that for Fulham, it's just about playing the way that we just know to, and just keep moving the ball, pressing when we don't have it, and we will create chances. And if looking at these stats, if they are anything to go by, Fulham should, emphasis on the word should, they should come away on New Year's Eve comfortable winners.
So you're confident. So if I could ask for your team that you play and a score prediction then.
In terms of the team, do you change it? I don't. Assuming everyone's fit, I don't see who you bring in. I mean, I guess maybe a potential argument for Tosin, but I don't think there's an argument for Tosin. Tim Ream and Diop were both fantastic against Palace. Paulinho and Reed and Pereira, they're guaranteed to start. Mitrovic is guaranteed to start. Bobby Reed was really good and a player who impresses for me near enough every time he plays, no matter where he plays on the pitch. Willian, I mean, I don't really know who you'd bring in. I maybe Wilson or James, but I don't think either of them have done enough to warrant a start. Tete will play. Leno will play. Robinson. I don't think you make any changes, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree because the only player I'd sort of maybe bring in is Harry Wilson, but then again, like Bobby Reed doesn't deserve to get dropped. Like he played so well, scored the goal. Obviously, we made use of the 5 subs and we brought on Wilson near the end of the game. Harris came on, Vinicius came on, but yeah, I genuinely just wouldn't change a thing. So what would you say for a score prediction then?
I will go with, as much as I'd like us to keep another clean sheet, I don't think we will. I think the thing that I've noticed most about Fulham is remember when I was last on Jack and Joe show saying, I'm a little bit worried about us defensively, but I've kind of realised since then that the reason why we concede is just it's not down to personnel, it's down to the way that we play, the way that we press forward, and because of that we are going to leak goals and chances. So because of that, I'm going to go with 3-1 Fulham.
Lots of goals in that. Do you have a particular goal scorer, you think?
We'll go Mitrovic to score 2 and Pereira.
Nice. Andres Pereira, who, by the way, had a great effort in the first half of the free kick. Hasn't really been mentioned much, but what an effort it was from about 35-ish yards. It was amazing that he took it on. And what I found amazing about Palace, I know we've sort of talked about it earlier, was we sort of came out the ground. We just won 3-0 and everyone was just sort of like, yeah, like we deserved that. That was great. I don't remember the last time we went to a Premier League game, won away from home, and everyone just sort of came out the ground thinking that was great. Like Leeds, obviously great, but like convincing 3-0 victory. I think actually that might be our best Premier League win. Obviously, we beat Palace 4-1 in 13-14 since Swansea away, 3-0.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, I reckon so. I'm trying to think.
Incredible.
Trying to think back to that season. I mean, I'm pretty sure we beat Norwich away on Boxing Day that season, but I can't remember whether it was 2-0 or 2-1. I can't remember what
2-1.
2-1. So it wasn't that convincing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're probably right.
That's
Palace,
9 years ago.
And then Swansea.
Yeah. The Swansea last game of the season was generally the last time we won 3-0 in a league game, Premier League game away from home. That is amazing. And yeah, just great stuff. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win against Southampton. I actually back us to get another clean sheet. I think they will have chances. El Yunusi, Shea Adams, even Adam Armstrong if he comes off the bench, if he plays. And actually, it's actually really interesting right now because you look at Southampton, they're struggling for goals. Well, guess who's not struggling for goals? Burnley. Guess who they've got in their team? Nathan Teller, who's on loan from Southampton. And, I think that's a really, in hindsight, terrible decision for Southampton to loan him out to Burnley, but they are reaping all the rewards. Vincent Kompany's side, and they currently look really good to return to the Premier League. And with a new brand of football under Kompany, it will be a little bit more exciting to watch Burnley than it was under Sean Dyche. Okay, so we both think we're going to beat Southampton. That would take us to 25 points, and it would be a great way to round off the year. It would be remiss if we didn't sort of touch on the whole of 2022, because I think the next time me and Joe will speak will be in 2023. So what are your thoughts? It's been the most remarkable year for Fulham, 2022, promotion, a couple of 7-0 wins in there as well. What are your high points? What are your low points? What are your overall feelings?
I think as a whole, 2020, you don't think you could have asked for much more, to be perfectly honest with you. High points, well, there's so many. Like, it just feels so weird to pinpoint one. Obviously, we started in January with 2 6-2s and a 7-0. Then, obviously the 7-0 against Luton, Mitrovic beating all the records, Fulham lifting the trophy and being champions, and then we've kind of carried that through into the Premier League. I guess it's not really a high point, but looking back, but at the time, performing as well as we did against Liverpool was absolutely unbelievable. And then we've carried it on in that vein, and there's the 3-2s against Brentford and Forest and Leeds, and there's just so many moments. I think it's so difficult to pinpoint one. But if I was to pinpoint one, I think that 7-0 Luton game was just absolutely special. It's something that I think we'll always look back on as, what a night that was.
An amazing night that was. Of course, we lost George Cohen and we lost Paul Parrish. Like some really sad moments this year, which has brought the club closer together and the fan base closer to the fans. I'm sure the game against Southampton, we will commemorate George Cohen in the correct and proper way, and it will be really great and emotional. And we'll see what the club does there, and that should be very, very nice. But in terms of like on the pitch low points, there aren't actually very many. Because you can't really say when we lost 4-0 to Sheffield United because we were already champions. No one really cared. Everyone was partying in the concourse by the 40th minute. So then you'd have to sort of turn and go, well, what about Arsenal away and Manchester City away and Spurs away? If there are low points of this year, we've had a tremendous year. Obviously, there were a couple of... the West Brom away game was pretty crap. But then again, like we were already on song for promotion at the time. I don't think anyone really cared that much. It really has been so many positives and very, very few negatives, which is fantastic. And hopefully 2023, more of the same. And maybe in 8 months' time, we'll be flying off somewhere for a European game. But let's not count our chickens just yet, Jack. Let's not do that.
No, as much as I would love to. I think we've still got a little bit of work to do. Who knows if we can somehow if we can somehow avoid Manchester City in the FA Cup, you never know. In terms of a low point, I actually thought it's probably that Crawley Town Carabao Cup game, isn't it? As the low point, but we'll brush over that. That doesn't matter. Who knows? I think the aim is still obviously stay up and establish ourselves as a mid-table team, but you never know. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, I'm always looking over our shoulders. If we were to go 2 or 3 games without a win and suddenly teams below us pick up points. It's a massive win for Wolves the other day, but in the circumstances, it sort of didn't really matter because that sort of dragged Everton into it. If Leeds lose tonight, they're obviously still in trouble. Bournemouth losing again. West Ham play Brentford. I'm going to be there in a couple of days. That'll be really interesting to see what happens at the London Stadium because they're in desperate need for points. And we're just sitting a little bit pretty right now in 9th place. And, I'm not panicking. I think everyone's pretty happy. We're on a good target. And like you say, we only need 18 more points and that's 6 more wins. But we haven't even factored in the fact that we can draw games and pick up points here and there and pick teams off and hopefully get to 40 as soon as possible. Jack, I think that's that for today. It's been fantastic to be back in the Premier League in terms of to have the football back after the World Cup and hopefully more of the same on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, fingers crossed, more of the same. Thank you for having me. Hopefully I've done Joe Sansom justice. But yeah, what a fantastic year for Fulham.
What a fantastic film. Honestly, it's been fantastic to be here. Jax, thanks so much for stepping in today. I'm sure we'll see you back again soon. To everyone watching, thank you so much. And please try and hit that subscribe button. We're really trying to get to 5K and I'll keep banging the drum until we hit the magic number. Jack Stroudly, thank you so much for being here.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you on New Year's Eve. So actually, have a happy New Year and enjoy the game at Craven Cottage. Fulham versus Southampton. Come on, Fulham.